Question. What are you a fan of? Is it a movie? A book? A TV show? A music group? A sports team? Or maybe something less conventional? I'm Regan.
And I'm Christian. We've spent over 10 years working in the customer service and entertainment industries. It's this experience which leads us to believe that everyone has a compelling and personal connection to the things they are a fan of.
And we're here to uncover the secret fandoms of the Gulf Coast's VIPs. Join us as we talk with passionate fans about what they love. This episode is a special release from our live panel discussion at Pensacon 2021. We talk with Jason Robbins, a local musician, actor, podcaster, stand-up comedian, and illustrator, about our mutual love for a galaxy far, far away.
When I graduated high school, my family, when you graduate high school, everybody gives you money. First thing I did was I went and bought a stereo that was worth more than my car. And the first thing I bought myself was the Star Wars trilogy box set, the soundtrack, all the CD, and I just drove around listening to Star Wars all the time.
This episode of Fantastic People is sponsored by Create Pensacola. Create Pensacola is a local custom embroidery and apparel printing shop in Pensacola, Florida, located at 2475 East 9 Mile Road. They accept outside items to customize, or you can choose from their stock items in store. Create Pensacola is also the home of the signature Gulf Coast Locals brand. Shop now in-store or online at createpensacola.com. Welcome to our live recording, all of you thanks for coming. It's Fantastic People. So today we are joined with Jason Robbins. Jason, thank you for being here. He is a musician, actor, podcaster, stand-up comedian, and illustrator from the Gulf Coast. He has been in the entertainment industry for over 25 years. Currently, he is a host of the Nerd Cave Retro and Open Micers podcasts, and a writer, producer, and star of the award-winning short film Monsters Anonymous. He's also an actor in the massively successful award-winning short film Survey. Jason, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
That was pretty good, Reagan. I'm going to give you props.
Thanks.
That really flowed off the top. You normally mess those up.
I do.
But you nailed that one.
I did. So we're here at Pensacon. This is a special recording. What have we seen so far at Pensacon? What have we been doing?
I have done nothing. I've been very busy all weekend. I made time for this.
You did. Good job.
Yep.
And you showed up. I'm glad you're here.
Done a lot of walking.
Yes.
all day today.
It's a very spread out event this year.
It is most years.
It is most years.
Feel a little more
extra spread out.
Yeah, normally all these panels are right across the street at the hotel.
Right.
But now they're spread out throughout the city. It's kind of hard to figure out where you're supposed to be for what panel.
Yes.
Let me live vicariously through the two of you for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the best panel you've been to so far?
Well, I've only done panels. I haven't actually been to panels. And went over, did my first panel this morning, which we did Nerd Cave Retro live. Mm-hmm. Went over to the Bay Center, walked around there for a little while, came back over here for a bit, then went back to the Bay Center. So we've been back and forth about 3 times today. So.
Yeah, we've done the same. We parked over here, so we ran back and forth for a lot of stuff. But we went to, my wife and I, Chelsea, who's here. We went to, I think the best thing I went to was the Judith Howe, I don't know. Hogue. And the other guy, Raphael, that was the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
That was a really good one because they were really great.
Yeah.
On stage. I mean, they're very comfortable doing this thing. Sometimes you get people that are here because they're getting paid to be here, and you can tell they're not loving the experience. These two really love the experience, and they're a part of something that's touched a lot of people's lives over the last 30 plus years.
Oh yeah.
So it was a very good panel.
There's just a lot of excitement after COVID. to be back and doing it again.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can definitely tell it's not as packed as it usually is, but that's totally understandable.
Yes, and those that are here are thankful to be here.
Yeah.
And also we went to the Voicing Your Dreams with,
yeah.
I forget the guy's name, but the voice of Mickey Mouse and Ashley Eckstein.
Brent Ewan.
Yeah, that guy. And Ashley Eckstein of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars. Speaking of, we are here to talk about A Galaxy Far, Far Away with Jason. So, Jason, first, of course, when did you first experience Star Wars?
Star Wars? Never heard of it.
We booked the wrong guest.
I got the wrong guy. That was the other Jason, I guess.
Honestly, I've been asked this question before, and I honestly don't have a first memory of Star Wars. I was born exactly 3 days after the very first, A New Hope was released in the theaters. It was released on May 25th, 1977. I was born on the 28th.
Oh, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And I have pictures of me Christmas 1980 where I'm sitting in front of the tree and I'm literally a wall of Star Wars toys. I had
awesome.
The Millennium Falcon. I had the Death Star playset. I had, I think there was a cloud car next to me. I had the 12-inch Chewbacca. I had a remote control R2-D2, which I still have to this day. It's in my little curio case in the living room. Awesome. Still have the little remote control, but the antennas broke off somewhere along the last 40-something years. I don't even like saying that.
That's the time to be alive for Star Wars merchandise.
Yeah. And I've actually had this conversation with Steve Wise before about, when they started releasing the DVDs and Blu-rays and adding in they put all the extra scenes that was cut out of the movie. I remember, and I know I have this memory, and even Steve says he has this memory of the Biggs Darklighter scene at Tashi Station being in the TV cut of Star Wars. Because I remember it was a huge deal when they played Star Wars on TV when I was a kid. And I remember that scene being in the TV cut, but I can't prove that, but
right.
At least I have Steve to be there to
So
back me up.
Like, I was there, totally. He's just a good friend. He's man.
You briefly kind of touched on the 40 plus years, the legacy of Star Wars. Why do you think it's had such staying power and been such a phenomenon, like in the zeitgeist?
Because it is the ultimate. When you look at literature and what the stories that human beings have told over the entire course of human history, and there's Mr. Steve now, speak of the devil. But
welcome to the podcast.
You think about the way that it's the ultimate battle of good and evil, and you have all your literature archetypes. You got your hero's journey, you got the old wizard, you got the princess, the rogue, his dog, right. and there's just something about it that's absolute perfection when you look at it as sort of that hero's journey tale, that goes back all the way to the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's old. I mean, even as far back as Beowulf. I mean, it's sort of the same. It's just storytelling. I don't know. It just hit at the perfect time, I guess.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison. I wonder in 1,200 years if Beowulf and Star Wars will be side by side. You know what I mean? Like, is that our version of Beowulf that we get to live and be a part of?
Yeah.
I know you said that you were born, right as it's coming out. Do you have, what would you say is the time where you really maybe decided or it clicked that you identified as a fan of Star Wars?
I just remember every single day. My grandfather had recorded the entire trilogy for me on VHS.
Oh wow!
This was back in the early '80s, off of HBO. Right. VCRs were expensive, VHS tapes were expensive, and he got the actual clamshell cases for me.
Oh wow!
and he put little gold laminate stickers on the side, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And I used to sit in the living room and just wear that Return of the Jedi tape out every day and play with my toys along with the movie. And sort of still do that to this day.
Yeah.
So you're pro Ewoks.
Yeah, I'm very much pro Ewok.
Yeah. It's a hot topic of debate among people. I'm pretty pro.
Now, Jar Jar Binks, on the other hand,
I'm relatively pro Jar Jar. I'm going to call that controversial. What keeps you coming back to it after all this time? I mean, it's been a part of your life for so long.
I think I just like to escape into that world. Especially, even during the 90s when there was no, or, late 80s, early 90s when there was no Star Wars, but they were doing the extended universe stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the mid-90s, they did the whole Shadows of the Empire,
right.
Which why Disney has struck that from canon is beyond me, but, that kept Star Wars alive for a long time. And it was one of those things, like, even in the movie Clerks, when they were talking about Star Wars, the independent contractors on the Death Star, like those are the same conversations I would have with my friends back then. Like Star Wars was something that we would geek out about, and it was not. It was those old movies at that time. Like when I was in high school in the early '90s, nobody watched Star Wars. It was such a niche fandom thing, but I never left it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a lot more mainstream today, of course, than ever before. I mean, I remember, not even maybe 5 or 10 years ago, someone say, "Oh, what's your favorite movie?" And if you say Star Wars, they're like,
"Yeah,
huh? What?"
Even
most
now, you can't even say Star Wars anymore. You have to say A New Hope. Because everything is Star Wars now.
Yes, you have to get very specific, which is a great question. When it comes to the new canon as a whole, or not new canon, what is when you say, "Oh, I love Star Wars," is it all encompassing, or is there a segment that you kind of say, "This is I mean"?
I think it's better to look at it as a whole instead of trying to judge, well, this trilogy's better than this trilogy.
Right.
Like, it's all part of a bigger story.
Right.
And I understand if you like one movie better than the other. Like, I don't really like Attack of the Clones, but I can still go back and watch. There's a lot to like about Phantom Menace. There's a lot to like about Revenge of the Sith. Attack of the Clones, it's kind of it's not really necessary in the grand scheme of the story. So it's
just watch Clone Wars instead.
Yes, I could just give me the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars made those movies so much better for me.
Absolutely.
And even now, like the Bad Batch, I'm in love with that show. And everybody else I know that's a Star Wars fan is like, "I don't know if I like it." Like, look, I've lived through a world where there was no Star Wars. So if it's good or bad, just give me all the Star Wars. I'll take it.
Give me more, despite its flaws and things that might happen with it. I'm the same way. I mean, it's like it's Star Wars. So I'm going to watch it. I'm going to consume it. I'm going to pay money for it. And I'm going to enjoy it because
the same thing, with the new trilogy that Disney did. Like, I loved the first one. I'm one of the few people that will defend Last Jedi to the death.
You and me, brother.
Because I understand what Rian Johnson was going for in the overall storytelling in that movie. But the third one, because they didn't let Rian Johnson finish out that story and went back to JJ, I don't think JJ knew where he was going. And that's kind of his thing. JJ knows how to start things. Oh, yeah. He does not know how to end them.
We're looking at you, Lost.
Yeah. Exactly. That was what was going through my head. And he's on that new Batman animated series too now. Dangerous. And I'm like, just let him start it. Don't let him finish it.
I think, Star Wars is just such this impressive powerhouse. And I think sometimes the community, we all love it so much that we want ownership of all of it. But I think to your point of looking at it in a grandiose thing, like, it doesn't have to all be for everyone. Like, there can be, I'm totally fine being a person who loves Last Jedi, even if other people don't. That's okay for me. Because I still have that.
Right.
And not all Star Wars has to be, it was meant for kids.
Yeah.
Right.
When we were kids, even though kids now can look at those old movies and be like, they're kind of slow and clunky, but...
Well, and I think it's important to understand that, to your point, it's for kids.
Yeah.
And I think that what your favorite iteration or stage in Star Wars is very reliant on when you were a kid.
We were exposed.
Exactly.
Because if you look at the original trilogy, folks that were kids growing up with those movies love the original trilogy.
Expect
Kids
to
that were
feel
kids when the
that
new trilogy came out.
Yeah, you can't expect to feel that sense of excitement and wonder as, a 50-year-old that you did when you were 10. It's just
Right.
You become jaded and rough when you
Right,
get older.
right.
You're not going to have that same sense of wonder, but if you can just look at it for what it is and just get enjoyment out of it, that's
Right.
what it's for.
Right. And it is a story that connects to generations. It's now a family event.
Yeah.
Because we have people like yourself who were born when they first came out, and then people that were born in kids when the new trilogy came out, and now we have kids that are able to experience the newer stuff. So it's unique in that way. Not many properties can do that.
Well, you look at they're doing the Bad Batch now, which is out middle of the season right now. That's the Clone Wars was a cartoon for kids, but it was so well made and so well done. And the Bad Batch is just an extension of the Clone Wars, and Rebels. And I just
Resistance or the
I wasn't a huge. It didn't capture me.
No.
I watched the first couple episodes. This ain't really for me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's totally
it's okay
okay
to say this one ain't for me.
Right.
Yeah, we need more of that, I think.
Yeah.
Just in general. I did want to ask, Regan and I are both big Star Wars guys. We never get to talk about Star Wars. Do you have a specific memory of when you were first exposed to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I experienced Star Wars was at home. My parents had bought actually I remember buying them in Walmart. It was the special release version in the 90s, where if you had the two cases facing side by side, it created Darth Vader's head.
Yeah.
And it was the one with the really long, annoying sort of special features discussion at the beginning that you'd always fast forward through as a kid. But I remember sitting there watching it with my dad. I can still picture him behind me on in his recliner, me sitting on the floor looking up at our small little tube TV, watching Star Wars. And he introduced me to it. And it's funny because I've taken the deep dive into Star Wars, and he's still sort of casually aware of Star Wars. I don't think I would necessarily classify him as a fan. He just likes to watch movies and good entertainment. But that's where it all started for me. What about you, Christian?
Yeah, I saw Star Wars before this, but I remember being about 10 years old before Phantom Menace came out. They re-released the original trilogy in the theaters again. And I remember going again with my dad to watch it. My dad's a huge science fiction guy.
I actually got a job at the movie theater just so I could see them the night before they came out.
Yeah, that's great. I kind of follow up to that thought, though. As being someone who was exposed to the original trilogy so many years before the prequel trilogy starts, what was kind of your reaction to Star Wars coming back?
Oh, man. It was like a fever pitch because I worked at the movie theater. And, when you work at a movie theater, they have the big screen in the lobby that plays just trailers. All day long, I would just hear that Star Wars trailer.
Yeah.
All day long. And just, oh, God, when is it going to be here? And we sat and I got to watch it. We all got together. And back then, kids' film was on movies were on reels back in the day. And you had the movie came in like 3 different cans of like 7 reels you had to tape together, and then you have to watch it beforehand to make sure you put it together right. So that night, everybody that worked at the theater, all their friends, that theater was packed with people at midnight the night before it came out watching that movie, and it was just like, I don't know, it was magical. Because I knew every scene of that movie backwards and forwards, and every time I knew CGI or something was added in, I'm like, ooh, 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 pointing at the screen. I'm pretty sure everybody was ready to kill me at that point. But it was, and I still like the special edition. I mean, there's a lot. Like, I could do without the whole Jabba the Hutt thing. But didn't need it. It was fun to see it, but honestly, I just wish that Disney would work out something with Fox so they could just put out the original cuts of the movies. So you can have the special edition and the original.
It should definitely be an option. And with Disney Plus, honestly, there's not.
But
really
didn't they do a Blu-ray release when it was still with Fox? I think I have that where they have the original cut.
I don't think they've ever done the original cut.
Theatrical.
I don't think they've done a DVD release or Blu-ray of the original. The only way you can get it is on VHS and Laserdisc.
Yeah, I think Fox actually has said that they lost it, that it doesn't exist, but I don't think that's entirely true.
Yeah, I think that's a load of crap because for one thing, when he redid the special edition in the 90s, he had to go get the original print of the movie to restore it be able to do the special edition.
That's right. I'll have to go look that up. I swear it was some version of a theatrical.
I think there's just some lawyers wanting some money somewhere.
Probably.
Wow. So what is maybe your favorite thing about Star Wars? Just
I like there's the thing that I like about, like, I keep bringing up the Bad Batch, but the reason I love is not because of the Jedi or a thing like that. It feels like a lived-in world that it doesn't feel digital. It feels like a futuristic analog world. Like spaceships feel like, you could have a clunker that barely makes it from planet to planet, and up to the, Naboo.
Right. It's not so polished all the time.
Yeah, it's like you have your social classes and you have your, bounty hunters and smugglers, and it's a complete world that George Lucas made that you can tell so many stories in. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and I think that was very intentional. He didn't, some sci-fi things explain themselves. Like, they will talk about there's over talk in the story.
Even Star Trek, like, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but they get bogged down in so much technobabble sometimes. Right. Star Wars doesn't do that.
Doesn't do that at all.
Something either works or it doesn't.
Right, and we're not going to explain. We're not going to explain why it works, and that's what I think. That if I remember, I saw an interview with George. That was very intentional.
Yeah,
to make it believable, to make it something you can buy into. It just works, and you see it, and then you go mimic it, and just assume that in the future or in some past world of great technology, this stuff works.
Yeah.
No, I like that a lot, actually, because if you think about, like, if you're driving down the street, you could see an old Oldsmobile, and you're like, there's no reason that should be driving.
But it is.
But it is.
It is.
The same thing's true for the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
That actually is I've never thought of it that way.
Like,
if
space travel was real, I wouldn't want to ride in that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shifting gears for just a minute into the dark side, if you will. Has there been, and can you tell us about a time where Star Wars has gotten you through a difficult time?
Yeah, actually, very recently, I went through a divorce, and in my recovery from the divorce, I lost my home, everything. I'm in this little apartment by myself, and I would just watch, like, the Clone Wars, or go back and watch the original trilogy, and it just helped me just kind of push everything away for a while and find some time when I was happy, and help me find that again.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we like to do with this podcast and just the discussion of fandom in general is that when you're a fan of something, it's an anchor for you to hold on to. And things can be unsteady, but that thing you love, Star Wars is a great example. Gosh, I've watched The Office 100 times just because I need something that, at this moment, I don't need entertainment that I don't know what's going to happen. I need to know exactly what's going to happen.
There's some games like that for me that, probably once every year, every 2 to 3 years, the same game comes rolling out. It's a video game, and you play through it, and it just gives you that sense of happiness and
I have
stillness.
Old games like that too that I just keep going back to. If I just need to kind of escape, like, I can always go back to the same games over and over again.
Yeah, the Star Wars soundtrack is that way for me as well.
Oh yeah.
That first entrance of that fanfare and that's John Williams' theme. It's just this, like.
I remember when I graduated high school. My family. When you graduate high school, everybody gives you money.
Yep.
First thing I did was I went and bought a stereo that was worth more than my car. And the first thing I bought myself was the Star Wars trilogy box set, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
What do they call those back? Not box set, but
I don't know.
I guess it was a box set, but it was like
I
all
wasn't
the
alive
CD.
back then, so.
I just drove around listening to Star Wars all the time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, it's funny you talk about that, the fanfare specifically, you know, or in you being in the movie theater. I screened Force Awakens.
Yep.
And being in a theater with just a small group of people, because it's a lot stricter on screening movies now than it used to be. There was a select few of us screening that movie, and the moment the trumpets begin in the fanfare, everyone in there just started screaming.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter like whether you love Force Awakens or whatever. At that moment, we had decided the next 2 hours are gonna be great.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a great
It was.
ride.
It was. Yeah.
I saw that movie 4 times in the theater.
Wow. Yeah. I'm probably close to that on that one.
I think I might have seen that one 3 times.
Yeah, 3 I think is the number I saw.
And then the other ones I saw twice in the theaters.
I was
Not
just
9.
so
I watched
happy
9
to
once.
just so happy to have Star Wars back in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we're gonna get more. It's not over with.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, give me all of it.
Yeah. So we like to also, you know, talk about the positive, but also kind of the negative. So what are maybe some critiques you have for the Star Wars fandom, or even Star Wars, whether Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm in general?
Well, I think we kind of touched on it a little while ago. My biggest complaint is the actual Star Wars fans themselves. Not all the fans, but, you know, that certain section of fans
General
that
toxicity.
think that it belongs to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've gone through sections of my life where, you know, everybody goes through certain phases where, like, I didn't like Star Wars. Star Wars was a kid's thing, you know, like that type.
Right.
Everybody goes through a phase, and the point where people are so toxic that, you know, they run people off of the internet. Like, what was Kelly Marie Tran?
Yep.
Daisy Ridley.
Yep.
Just running these people off of.
Just being a bully.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally being a bully.
because you didn't like something that they did.
that they were hired to do.
Yeah,
They didn't even
actors.
create the character. They were hired to play the character.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know, like, I think there's some serious. I don't know. I think there's just some serious mental illness.
Yeah,
in the world.
Well, and it's like we said earlier, these things are made for children.
Yeah.
You're getting angry and giving literal death threats to someone for playing a character in something that was made for children, and you are a grown adult. Like, what are you doing?
And like I said, it's okay to not like something.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and there's been a lot of stuff, you know, that I like. There are certain, you know, like, I love The Office. There are certain episodes of The Office that I don't like. There's certain episodes of Scrubs. I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars stuff I don't like, and that's okay. You don't have to like everything. You can't maintain that level of it's all great all the time. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and if we're being fair and honest, even the original trilogy is not without many flaws.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that, you know, people basically bullied George Lucas into selling it because they didn't like the prequels. And then they sold it to Disney, and then everybody's like, those same people are like, give it back to George Lucas. Like, you bullied the man and called him an idiot until he sold it.
Yeah, for $4 billion, though, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
he's not complaining, but at the same time, I've created things. You know, I even on a small scale, with Monsters Anonymous, there was kind of a kerfuffle with a part 2 that was going to come out, and I had to pull rank because I owned all the copyrights and everything. So I understand when somebody tries to take something from you and do something different with it. You're like, but it's not I made it.
Right.
It's not your. Like, I completely understand it. He made it.
Right.
And, you know, he constantly was going back and like
redoing
things.
Remade it,
like
again.
changing this and changing that.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. It's his to do what he wants to, but at a certain point, you got to be like, okay, I'm done.
Leave it alone.
I'm just going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ownership is, I would say, of every episode we've done on the podcast, 70% of them, that's just a general issue. And I think Star Wars is the number one example, this false sense of ownership of the property.
Well, the thing I like to tell people, that when people were getting really crappy about The Last Jedi, I would tell people the same thing online. I would tell them, you know what? If you think you can do better, go do better.
Yeah.
Start writing some scripts, or go to college and get yourself a writing degree. Go out to L.A., start writing some scripts for stuff, and then maybe one day Disney will say, hey, maybe you should write the next Star Wars movie, and then do what you want. But until that day happens, you ain't got nothing to say about it.
Right. And that's kind of what J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson did. They were both inspired.
If you think you can do better, go do better. And if you can't, shut up.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that I think that's what makes.
And don't get me wrong, it's okay to be critical. I mean, I can be critical about stuff and talk about the stuff that was weird or didn't seem right, and that's okay. But
why didn't Obi-Wan recognize R2-D2?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot to pick apart, but at the same time, I mean, you can't just be like, you don't. Because we love it, we can pick it apart, but just don't get to the point where you're like bullying people off of social media. Like, that's just not cool.
Well, and sitting here recording at Pensacon, I think we've said this numerous times, that's what makes events like this so special, is because everybody has a thing that they like. And this is not like a very specific con. This is, I qualify this as more of a fan con.
Yeah.
Like, if it can be something that has dedicated fans, it belongs here at Pensacon. And it's something that people can come and express their love for something, and others can express their love for something else. Or everyone can express their love for the same thing, but in different ways. I don't walk around and hear, negative stuff that you hear on the internet happening around here.
Yeah.
It's all celebrated. And I think that's the point. If you like it, celebrate it.
That's the difference between real life and the internet, is you go on the internet and people feel braver with the thought of anonymity, and they think they can say things. Well, they say things and they do things, and that's kind of a whole different ball of wax, is whether or not people, we should have all of our info out there and not be able to hide behind, handles and stuff like that. But I don't know how that's gonna. Maybe, I mean, I have faith in human beings that one day we're gonna kind of get past that. But
we'll figure it out eventually.
I mean, we're still in an infancy stage as far as social media and things like that.
So the other question we like to discuss a lot is the future. What does the future of Star Wars look like to you, and what has you most excited about what's coming down the pike?
Honestly, I really want VR to be the next big thing.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And whether I have a feeling, I've said this, I make this prediction. I think Nintendo's going to be the one that actually makes VR viable for the mass public.
Interesting.
And because they've already tried it back in the 90s.
Virtual Boy.
Yeah, Virtual Boy.
Every time somebody says Nintendo, like, what are you doing? They end up doing gangbusters. Like, everybody thought the Wii was stupid. Everybody thought the Switch was stupid. What? And Sony is doing VR. Like, Facebook is doing VR, but it's not very easily accessible to the public. I think if Nintendo
the price
can figure
point's
it out,
not right.
I mean, imagine if you're playing VR and like you can like be it, like you're playing almost like an MMO as a Star Wars character.
Well, and there is the VR experience at Disney World. I've not done. Did you do it when you went?
That has been permanently shut down.
What?
The void is not open.
Oh, wow.
Because I tried. I was going to pay the money.
That's unfortunate. Well, they really had something. I mean, I read reviews about it. They really pulled something off. I mean, where you are standing before and hearing Darth Vader. I mean, it was very, very real. So hopefully we see more of that in the future, I guess.
I really hope. I think that VR is going to be the next big entertainment thing. I mean, where else can we go other than actually immersing yourself into that world?
Right. I don't know, this might be Christian's answer too, but I would say that as recently announced, although not recently promoted, Dave Filoni being the executive creative director of Lucasfilm is encouraging to me. It's a step. It's a very big step in the right direction of we know we're going to get Star Wars content. We can get excited about specific shows and specific things that are coming down the line, but having that centerpiece, that person in charge of those decisions is going to be like what we've seen from Marvel in the past, which is very exciting to hope for.
I think he is the perfect person to have the head of everything,
right?
Because he is the steward of Star Wars lore.
Yeah,
straight from working side by side with George Lucas,
right?
And he's such a fan and I think Kathleen Kennedy just had way too much on her plate. Like, she's good. I mean, look at everything she's done throughout her career.
Right.
But you give her Star
With
Wars,
George.
and I think she kind of just didn't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, I think she has the cinematic experience. She has the movie making experience, and she's worked on some phenomenal projects with Lucasfilm, with George, and outside of that, she has the skills necessary to run a movie studio.
Yeah.
But not the creative side. And I guess it's
I think
fairly
that's
evident
it.
she wasn't very deep in what was going on with Star Wars.
You put Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau in charge of creating, and you just let her do the producing.
Exactly.
I think too many people want the next Kevin Feige, and there's not another Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
No, but we can get close.
And I think splitting the roles up and letting her be the studio head and make the important decisions, but let Dave and John be the
Creative
story
guys.
guys.
Yep.
That's a great combination.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Christian? What are you looking forward to?
That's tough. There's some rumor about a Taika Waititi movie and a Kevin Feige movie. Those are two different things. I'm on board with both of those people as filmmakers.
Absolutely.
I'm just really excited about the stories we're going to tell. I feel like, what love or hate the sequel trilogy, once we're done with those 9 films, and this is kind of the point, I think, in 8, at the end of episode 8, there was a freedom of Star Wars, and they kind of came back from that. I think now that those 9 movies are done, we can get new, original, just brand new stories in that universe, and that's what I'm excited for.
I think now that once we're finally done with the Skywalker saga, we can finally start telling, more, get out into that world of Star Wars, everything that's coming out. I mean, you look at the Mandalorian. Has nothing to do with, the Skywalker storyline. I mean, he's just a myth off in the corner.
Right until the end there. But,
the Mandalorian is just, it's perfect.
It's excellent. Yeah.
It is. Season 2 is a nice pilot season for everything else, but
yeah. I think that's a fair critique of that, but I just really, we're talking about how deep the lore is and even the world building. It just feels like we haven't maximized on that in the films yet.
Right.
And so by getting away from this family legacy, and I love the family legacy, getting away from that, I think is really going to give us the opportunity to explore those things and truly highlight how great of a universe this is.
Yeah.
Right.
And Rogue One, I think, is a great example of this.
Right. Yeah. Well, and love or hate that they cut out the expanded universe. We've seen that happen already. I mean, what made the expanded universe so great is it played in the Star Wars sandbox, but it expanded from what was already there. And, they tossed it out so they could do that again themselves. And now that we've gotten through like you said, the Skywalker storyline, we get to watch them do it all over again. We get to live through them exploring. And I'm going to be honest with you, not everything in the expanded universe was good.
Yeah.
At the time, it was all we had, so everybody loved it. But I can tell you, having waited to read the books until a few years ago, there was a trilogy I didn't even finish because it was just bad writing. But people love it, and it gave us some really great characters.
Well, it's all we had.
But it's all we had. But now I'm like, God, this is...
Yeah.
I went to the Wikipedia and got the Cliff Notes version so I could move on to the next thing.
I mean, you look
bad.
at Rebels and The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch and kind of that area of between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, that how many years? Like 18 years?
Yeah.
There's so much, that's the interesting part of the story to me right there.
There's so much else going on.
Yeah, when the Empire takes over, what was going on? How did they keep control?
Yeah.
That's the interesting part of the story to me. So stay in that.
Yeah, that's the continuation
sandbox
of that saga that we want. What we want to see is
Yeah.
what's going on in between and around and after, not 40 years later.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to the Old Republic, and then I absolutely want to see that.
I'm okay with that
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, just regurgitate that on screen for me. I don't care. That's what I
Those
want.
2 games were some of my favorite video games ever.
Yeah. Well, talking about earlier, that's one of the games that I go back to on a very regular basis, because they just hit a time in my life as a child that is that escape.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's do some fast hot
Lightning
topic
round?
questions. Yeah.
Okay.
We never do these lightning, but we call them lightning round.
We
Across
have
the,
very little time, so we're going to have to be like...
yeah, across the table. Favorite character?
Oh gosh, did I write that down here?
I don't think no, we didn't give you that one in prep. I wanted to put you on the spot.
I mean, I'm always a Han Solo guy. I even like the Solo movie.
Yeah.
So
I defend that movie. You talk about defending Last Jedi, I'll defend
I
Solo.
like that movie.
Yeah, it's fun. That movie's a good time. I'm going to go with Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, I know you would.
It's one of the best character arcs in the entire
Absolutely.
Star Wars
Contributed,
universe.
made Anakin Skywalker lovable.
Yeah.
Uh,
She plays such an important role in Star Wars, I think, especially for the Anakin character.
Yep.
So she feels like a plot device, but also has a great just character arc. And
Then have Rosario Dawson play her.
Let's not talk
Regan
about
has
that.
feelings.
Let's not talk about that.
Who's yours?
So I would
You
say
didn't like that? I thought she was perfect.
she's too recognizable. She took me right out of it. I couldn't stop
Yeah,
saying
I
that's
can see
Rosario
that.
Dawson. Like it's and I'm wanting to hear Ashley's voice, and I'm hearing Rosario.
Started singing
Dawson.
525,600 minutes.
Yeah.
Just singing Rent
Started
songs.
singing
Watching.
Rent. It's just it took me
Voice
right.
acting and acting are two totally
Absolutely,
separate
it just
things.
ripped me right out of it. I wanted to love it so much, but I didn't. Speaking of, yes, I would say Ahsoka.
We're done here, sir.
Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters, but I really love the story of Darth Revan in KOTOR. I think that that character development, that surprise when you find out, spoiler alert, when you find out who he is, like it's such a good moment, and a character that you relate to, maybe because you're playing the character, but I would say that's my favorite. Favorite movie of the 9.
So Solo and Rogue One are out.
Those are out. Favorite movie of the 9.
Always going to be Empire.
Yeah, it's Empire.
That's my favorite moment of any movie ever.
It's
Yeah.
hard because it depends on the day, but if
It
you made
does.
me choose, I'm going to go Empire.
I would actually say Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I knew you were going to
Really?
say that.
Yeah, because it's that culmination of just when he becomes Darth Vader from the.
I wish that would have been done in a Clone Wars way and made it a little more spread out. It just felt so fast.
It was rushed, but at the time when that's all we had, seeing that moment where he clicks over and he's like, it's that desperation to save Padme, which ends up killing her, but just that whole that's an emotional roller coaster from that moment to the finish, and then you see him come up and he's like, the theater was so quiet in that moment. I really enjoy that movie, but
You have another one?
I didn't.
Oh, okay. I was only going to ask, just because it's the closing, but you kind of already hit it. Favorite movie? Was anyone willing to give their ranking? Because it's a controversial thing.
Ooh.
Rank of
You
the
know
9?
it?
Yeah,
top
of
of
the
your
9.
head?
Ooh.
I'd have to look
I
it up.
probably
I
could
wrote
do
down.
it. I probably, if I started at the end and went up, I'm going to go Rise of Skywalker, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace. Oh, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I got to think about it more. It would change.
Well, I would say my number one favorite is going to be Empire. Number 2 is the original A New Hope. 3 is Return of the Jedi. 4 would be
that middle of the pack is the hard one.
Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, then it starts to kind of fall
blur
apart
a
from
little
there.
bit. Yeah.
Force Awakens right there, but then the other 4 or 5 they're all kind of interchangeable. I think, but Attack of the Clones is definitely dead last in my book.
Yeah, they're it's
I
neck and neck
tried to
for
go
me.
back and watch that not too long ago, and I was bored to tears until the actual war starts at like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will defend George for a lot of the critiques people give him, but I Hate Sand is absolutely deserving of all the critiques.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't find it. I posted it on Facebook. So if you want to find it, find me on Facebook, Regan Bell. It's in there deep in 2017, I think. But as I went through and I watched them all, and I had this
I have a question for you
scoring
guys.
system. But Rogue One was at the top, actually.
Oh. What's that?
Do you think what do you think the fan base would do if Disney decided to remake the original trilogy?
Oh, they would
riot.
They would riot.
They would absolutely riot.
Look, I'm a fan.
There's no questions about it.
Let me say this.
I don't think it would ever happen, but even if they sniffed around doing it, I think people would burn down Disneyland.
I want to see it.
Not
that I'd like it. No. I just want to live in a world where that exists.
Where it happens. I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm okay. Here's the thing. I'm okay with them making movies with those characters at that age and finding replacements because Sebastian
Stanley, just like Mark Hamill.
I was just going to say that.
So I'm sure there's others out there that can look like the others. So I'm okay with that. But please,
have you
for
seen
the love
the
of
deep
all
fake
things,
technology?
Yeah, deep fake. I mean,
deep fake is okay. There still needs some work. But I mean, I'm okay with that. But just please don't. There's no reason. I don't like any remakes when they are those iconic movies. And
our next panel is going to be about Spider-Man, just so you can rant about Spider-Man.
Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear me do that.
Well, Jason, we really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to Fantastic People. Please rate and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. To continue today's discussion, join the free Facebook group, which is Fantastic People Podcast Hangout, and follow us on social media. That's at @fantastic_peoplepod on Instagram and at @fantasticpeople, no E, on Twitter. We'd like to say thank you to Alex Edmondson for our artwork and Brian Velasquez for our music. This episode of Fantastic People is sponsored by Price Busters Games. Located at 4771 Bayou Boulevard in Pensacola, Florida, Price Buster Games buys, sells, and trades retro video games, comic books, trading cards, autographs, figures, and many more collectibles. With one of the largest selections of collectibles on the Gulf Coast, Price Busters has been supplying their customers with quality retro video games and collectibles, excellent customer service, and great prices since 2003. Price Busters Games is your link to the past because they have your childhood in a box. Shop in-store or online at pricebustersgames.com.